With the Butt Kicker Gamer 2, what you see and what you hear is what you feel. Butt Kicker. The future is feeling.
Last season's runner-up Trent Dinkel was victorious at Texas last week and became the first driver to officially lock himself into the round of 12 of the PRL NASCAR Cup Series playoffs. But today, we go to Talladega and 15 other drivers attempt to take that final spot locked into the round of 12. Welcome to round 3 of the PRL NASCAR Cup Series live from the virtual Talladega Superspeedway. Hi everybody, Joey Tebben here alongside Nolan Rempel in the booth, and our producer Josh Lee is behind the scenes. Nolan, it's Talladega. It kind of speaks for itself. We saw all the action today at the Cup Series in real life, but now we get to do it again in the virtual world, and it's a playoff cutoff race for good measure.
Oh, it certainly is, and what better track to have a playoff cutoff race if you want some good old drama than the Talladega Superspeedway. This track has long been famed for causing some of the most hectic races that you can possibly find, both in the real world and on the iRacing service, and you know that means that we are going to be in for one barn burner of a show here tonight as we get set to see who will make it into that round of 12.
And here is a look, well, we've got a few seconds at the rest of the schedule for the PRL NASCAR Cup Series while we load up the playoff graphics for you. Next week, we go off to the Charlotte Roval. We go from the high banks of Talladega to the road course at the Charlotte Roval. Then some fairly straightforward tracks coming up soon, your usual typical NASCAR schedule. And then we finish it off at a pair of mile and a halves in the Midwest at Kansas. What was formerly the iRacing Superspeedway finale is now the Chicagoland Speedway, rather, not Chicagoland Superspeedway yet. I'm looking at you, SMI. But it's going to be a crazy finale. It's going to be a crazy finale, Nolan, and I personally am looking forward to it, and it will be the finale of the PRL NASCAR Truck Series playoffs in 2022. You can see the round of 4 there. You can see everybody. This is actually from last week. Since then, Trent Dinkel has locked himself in. Abner Acosta, because of that big point total, has also locked himself in. But all those drivers below the cut line, Nolan, just above the cut line, they're all looking for Talladega as a big chance to win and lock themselves in.
Keep one eye on Sumner and Walden as well as Christian throughout this race, sitting just 3 points back from Witt as they look set to try to point their way over into the round of 12 here today at the Talladega Superspeedway. You know it's going to be a rough ride for a lot of these drivers. I have a feeling we're going to see some of these guys willing to throw some hands at the moment to make sure that they can put themselves right where they need to be when you get down to that white flag.
And here are the team standings. Just a brief update. The accurate numbers, Sumner and Papineau are 6 points under the cut line, Zemke 7 under the cut line, and Waldo Walden is kind of in trouble, 22 points below the cut line. So he needs to win tonight But to the team standings, OGR Racing and Private Label Team Hype couldn't be closer. 2 points separate these two teams at the top of the tables. Phase 2 Chassis Works has been very, very strong. They're a few points behind as well, but look for them to make that a three-way fight. And of course, the Private Label Team Hype, the Black Squad, also up there, and the two SG Esports teams, Octane and Slipstream, are right behind. Yellow Stripe Motorsports, always strong on these super speedways. They're down in 7th. Then Love Racing Black and Love Racing Red and Car Ramrod round out the top 10 in the team's standings. Series format, of course, has not changed. It's a fixed Cup series. You got 100% fuel, one green-white checkered attempt. We're probably going to need it because it's Talladega, and 4 tire changes available. It's fixed Cup racing at Talladega, Nolan. I think we've all done it plenty of times, but it never gets any easier.
Oh, you're absolutely right. It does not get any easier than this. And while the Talladega Super Speedway looks like a straightforward track to run, and it may be when you're on your own, when you have yourself packed in tight to 30-plus other cars around you racing constantly at 200-plus miles an hour, that is where it really starts to get intense. It's not so much a game where you have to race the track. You're racing everybody around you and the unpredictable nature that a track like this can bring.
Before we get into qualifying here, as the time ticks over, we of course have to thank all the people who make every single Precision Racing League broadcast possible this season. Of course, VCO, the virtual competition organization, always helping us out here at RaceSpotTV and helping make every single Precision Racing League broadcast possible this season. Couldn't do it without VCO. Also, Advanced Sim Racing. You see them at the head of the broadcast every single day. Owned and operated by passionate sim racers, Advanced Sim Racing designs and builds the sturdiest and most durable aluminum profile racing simulation cockpits available in the market today. All PRL members also get a 5% discount on ASR products using the Precision5 coupon code. Also, Racebox Sim Racing. Racebox offers mid and high-end button boxes for sim racing enthusiasts, from the casual gamer up to the most meticulous sim racing driver. Competitively priced and carefully handcrafted, Racebox's button boxes are an enjoyable addition to any sim racing setup. Visit raceboxsimracing.com and get a 5% discount, also using the Precision5 coupon code. And from Racebox to RaceLab. RaceLab helps you to improve your driving skills. With modern overlays, race statistics, and native VR integration, you can get the best out of iRacing with RaceLab apps. Start using it now for free at racelab.app. Also, the Butt Kicker. As always, Butt Kicker products provide an incredible immersion and realism to every game. Feel every nuance and truly put yourself in the driver's seat with the Butt Kicker. And last but not least, Ninja Trader. Ready to compete against the financial markets? Of course you are. Supporting over 60,000 users across the globe, Ninja Trader provides award-winning trading software and brokerage services. Ninja Trader is always free to use for advanced charting, backtesting, and trade simulation. Visit ninjatrader.com to get started with a risk-free trading simulator and start tracking your performance. 3 minutes left in qualifying right now at Talladega, and it's time to start tracking the driver's performance. It's qualifying at Talladega. It is full throttle and turn left, but it's in those tiny little margins, Nolan, that you find a pole position at a place like this. And there's strategies that not every driver in the field is currently using. Trent Dinkel went for one big lap on the high line, I think I saw, to build up speed, but he's down to the yellow line. I believe this will be his first legitimate qualifying lap, or his second. I'm not sure. I think it's actually his first, so maybe he isn't going to build up as much speed as possible.
It is going to be his first, coming to his second. It's a 53.714, and that, I believe, is going to put him on provisional pole for now by just 7 1/1000ths of a second. You mentioned a lot of drivers running that top line, and in fact, you can see Ross Cato running that top shelf at the moment in his number 12 Ford Mustang. Now, Ross Cato is a driver that obviously knows very well that strategy that can be used up on the top shelf, and it's interesting. Since this Gen 7 car was released, not too many drivers have opted to stay on that outside line, which makes me wonder if perhaps it's not as effective in these Gen 7 cars as it was back in the Gen 6 era.
Yeah, that's what I'm starting to think, because Trent Dinkel, he put it on pole with no high line running. He did one single warm-up lap, pinned it down to the yellow line, and he didn't even think he needed that second lap. So we'll see how that pays off. Abner Acosta, Trent's teammate, last season's champion, he is going for the alternate strategy, running up there in that third lane, up all the way on the right. He's going to dive it down now to the yellow line through the trioval in a matter of seconds. Not quite yet. Probably around the middle of the trioval here. Yep, now Abner starts to turn it down. He starts to merge across the lanes like a Delaware driver. And Abner Acosta is on the clock for his one and only lap here. His one and only legitimate lap, I should say.
So legitimate lap after Costa still running his way around the racetrack as he fires it down the back straightaway off of turn number 2. Just over a minute left in qualifying as still topping out at around 177, 178 miles an hour. Might be able to hit 179 by the time he gets down into turn number 3, and he will just barely nick that. Not able, though, to hit that 180 that might be crucial to put yourself up on pole position. He's only going to have time for this one lap, so he's going to have to make sure that it counts.
Jose Medina up into 8th. Good qualifying for him. If I remember correctly, in the trucks on Wednesday night, he was up pretty high on the grid as well. So Jose Medina clearly figuring out restrictor plate track qualifying, super speedway qualifying. After Acosta comes to the line, it's a 53.724. It's a good time. It's only good enough for 3rd, though, but that might be good in the grand scheme of things because he finds himself right behind his teammate Trent Dinkle. It's going to be private label team hype. 1 and 2 on the bottom lane coming to the start, Nolan.
Just 10 seconds left in qualifying. Nobody out on track to be able to make it back around in time. So out of the so far 35 drivers set to start this race, only 22 of them have set times. It's not uncommon, though, to see a good chunk of super speedway fields opt to not qualify. A lot of these guys are more than content to just sit in the back and just ride around and see how this race is going to develop over the first 90 laps or so.
As the dying seconds of the qualifying session tick down, we have the grid for you. Trent Dinkle is on pole for the 9th time in PRL Cup competition alongside Joshua Daniels, who he actually just passed for poles all time in the PRL NASCAR Cup Series. Last season's champion Abner Acosta is right behind, and James O'Brien makes it a private label team hype 1-3-4 on the grid. Steve Loving and Charlie Woods are 5th and 6th. Steve Loving always strong on the super speedway. Joao Guerra is 7th, and Waldo Walden needs a win tonight to lock himself into the round of 12. Jose Medina and Charles Sumner round out the top 10, and then it's Chris Hudson and Skip Gandy 11th and 12th. Brandon Walter and Jeff Hollingsworth 13th and 14th. Eric Papineau, Mark Kalin, Robert Besaw Jr., and Ross Cato round out the first half of the field, but the hits keep on coming. Down in 19th is Lou Christian. James Dewar is 20th. Tim Collier and Tamamasi 21st and 22nd. And Byron McDonald in 23rd was actually the last driver to set a lap time. Sean Powell for Phase 2 Chassis Works will start 24th. Richard Regan Jr., his teammate, was not actually allowed to qualify this week after bringing out a caution at Texas. He'll be 25th. And then Pat Harvey, Josh Conker, Eric Hogg, Adam Zemke, Byron Johnson, Paul Crumry, Mike Witt, Joe Hoggard, Richard Smith II, and Scott Griffin will round out 35 cars tonight. Paul Crumry, Scott Griffin, Richard Regan Jr., Joe Hoggard, Mike Witt, and Josh Conker were not allowed to qualify this week. So that's all the drivers who were punished for their misdoings at Texas last week, but I don't think that'll hurt them too bad at Talladega. Here's the drivers we have on Zoom. We'll be looking at them, I'm sure, plenty of times tonight. Mark Kalin and Trent Dinkle always on the Zoom, as is Lou Christian. And it's good to see Chris Hudson as well on his setup using the trademarked Jerome Bertiome extremely high angle up there in the top right. But we're sitting here on the grid, Nolan. We're getting ready to go. It couldn't be more perfect for private label team hype at the head of the field, but where do you want to be right now? Do you want to be one of those drivers who didn't qualify, or do you want to be with your 3 teammates up front? I think I know the answer.
At this point, if you're not with your teammates, the best thing to do is just try to fade towards the back of the field and get yourself sorted for the long run in this race. If you're with your teammates, though, try to stick with them as much as you possibly can. So you mentioned it perfectly. For private label, it's going to be absolutely perfect for them with so many of their guys started up here towards the front of the field. They're going to be able to get themselves linked up really quickly and manage to make some moves up there to see if they can potentially keep the top end of the field. Best thing for them is if they can get drivers leading up both trains. That way, they can control the pace throughout the entirety of this race.
Gonna break out the random number generator. It's never worked for me. The random number generator picked Mike Witt last time I did this for the Truck Series finale at Daytona last Wednesday. It shows Richard Regan Jr. for the win at Talladega. That failed as well. I have just landed on the number 9 in my random number generator. So if a random chance is anything to go by, Trent Dinkle will win the race tonight. But I think that might actually be a curse because it's never actually been right. But we will have to wait and see. 35 drivers ready to go tonight. Joe Hoggard, not on the grid, unfortunately. He's a driver we look for always in these super speedway races. He won last season in Atlanta, his first PRL Cup race. His teammate Clayton Ham won the Daytona finale in this series. Unfortunately, Clayton isn't here tonight because he punctured a tire on the 465. He had to park it, and he found a very large nail in there. So unfortunately, YS Motorsports kind of diminished here tonight. They're usually strong, but we'll have to wait for the next super speedway race whenever that comes to see them competitive. But the iRacing sedan pace car crawls through turns 3 and 4. It's a very, very long pace lap at Talladega, but Trent Dinkel, with the random number generator on his side, will start this race from pole. His teammate Abner Acosta right behind. Then on the top, it's Josh Daniels, and their third teammate in private label team hype, James O'Brien, who is the darker red car up there on the top. We're getting ready to go at Talladega. The iRacing sedan pace car is going to pull off. Trent Dinkel is in control of the field. He's going to take everybody through the tri-oval, and in a matter of moments, we're going racing for 95 laps at Talladega. First 2 2/3 of a mile in the books at Talladega, and no surprise, private label team hype, they have found each other on the top. Dinkel, Acosta, Daniels, and James O'Brien. Daniels, of course, the odd one out there, but Dinkel and Acosta in control of the field. Charlie Woods takes over the lead of that bottom line, but the top looks like the place to be, at least early on in the run.
That top line is always going to be fast if you can get enough people on and that know how to work together. And it looks like Acosta and Trent Dinkel, the private label teammates, absolutely know how to work that top lane. They've also got James O'Brien, the third teammate, right behind them. So it's a 3-car tandem for private label up on the top shelf. You've also got Joshua Daniels down to the bottom side, still trying to control the pace on the inside line, but so far it's private label dumping into the high side as they're going to push Trent Dinkel to lead lap number 2.
A little bit of 3 wide in the background, almost 4 wide. I think that's Ross Cato trying to fall to the back of the field here, go to the back of the train. Josh Conker's going to get by him, and look at Richard Regan Jr. disallowed from qualifying because he brought out a caution at Texas last week, and he is already driving his way up through the field. Started in the 20s, I believe 24th. He's already up into 12th. He's cut his position in half, and he's very, very aggressive right now, trying to work with Mark Kalin about 8th in line. And he gave him a push about 8th in line. I'm sure Mark Kalin is a little bit scared right now.
A lot of things can happen all at one given point. When it comes to racetrack like this, you can already see a couple of drivers trying to make moves up to the outside line, thinking about opening up a third lane of traffic, but so far none of them have been able to find any help to do so. That inside lane is so disconjointed at the moment that it is allowed for now the top 5 to all pull clear from the outside line. At the moment, Joshua Daniels just can't find the pace on the bottom side. I'm not sure if he's just wiggling around too much or if Charles Woods just can't get to the back bumper to give him a push, but that's really costing everybody on that inside frame at the moment as there's a bit of a shot. Acosta shoving Trent Dinkel to keep him up there in the race lead.
Teammates and rivals, of course, fought each other tooth and nail for the championship last year. Trent Dinkel won 5 out of 10 races in last season's PRL NASCAR Cup Series. Came out in second in the championship, though, after losing out in that championship finale at Daytona, fittingly enough. But Trent and Abner are going to continue to fight here for the next 90 laps as teammates. 3 wide further back. Mark Kalin has now been shuffled out of line. And Richard Regan Jr., we talked about him being aggressive. Look at him all alone down in the bottom. He's about 3 car lengths ahead of Charlie Woods. Richard Regan Jr., he's going to take Josh Conker with him. That's another private label team hype driver. A little bit of an odd couple down there, but Regan and Conker trying to push their way forward and see if they can be the ones who make the bottom work. And Daniels pulls out. Actually, that's Steve Loving, forgive me. Steve Loving pulls out a line. He's going to go to the back of the field. He doesn't like what he's seeing. He wants to make sure he can survive to the end of this race, and he's going to go to the back of the train just like Ross Cato did.
Yeah, Reagan had been running on that second group for a good portion of the race so far, but he saw the hole, didn't want to slow up to check up with the second line, so he decided to go to the inside, and that took Josh Conker with him. And while they did a good job on the inside lane, I'm not sure if it'll be enough to push them up towards the front of the field, although as I say that, Waldo Walden has a bit of a bobble from the top shelf as well. That's going to cost the outside lane with a little bit of speed, as you still see a couple of drivers make some good old lane changes here and there. Make sure to use the blinkers, check those mirrors as they continue to work their way around the racetrack. So far, nothing too crazy going on. One more driver cycling to the rear of the field. Going to be Chris Hudson. You saw him just duck out of the line as we go 3 wide up the middle. Make that one for Joshua Daniels as he's going to push Charles Sumner out of line, and Sumner having a bad time, can't get in line again.
Yeah, everybody's just trying to back out, it seems like. Charles Sumner is the next driver to join the list of backer-outers. Sean Powell is 3 wide in the background with Tim Collier and Ross Cato, and that's led to a little bit of separation. You can see Josh Daniels in the back of this 10-car breakaway. They've pulled about 8/10 over Jose Medina and a few others. I don't think that's out of touching distance necessarily, but that is very interesting. Just that little bit of shuffling. It's already led to a huge breakaway, almost a full second between 10th and 11th, and then down to the rest of the field.
Yeah, those little moves, that's all it takes to cause a break in the field. As in fact, there goes another one as Jose Medina is going to go to the inside lane and give up the speed. But now there's a 4-car train kind of bridging the gap. That train is made up of Jeff Hollingsworth, Eric Papineau, Robert Bissaw Jr., and Lou Christian. These 4 cars are being able to bridge the gap somewhat, and that's allowing that backpack to stay in touch at the moment. Now it's a 2-car train of Chris Hudson and Byron McDonald. Note that the brakes here are coming from cars that are all single filed and that aren't pushing it too hard at the moment. They're just trying to see if they can survive it. On board with Mark Daly, he currently runs 8th place up on the top shelf. That backpack starting to regain speed. Might take them a couple laps, but they're going to get formed up with this lead pack before long.
Still little bits of shuffling down the back straight, but other than that, fairly straightforward racing, calm racing here at Talladega, which is what we like to see in the first 8 laps or so. We don't want to wipe out half the field a few laps into the race like happens all too often in these super speedway races in real life. Dinkel and Acosta still very much in control, but this is the closest the bottom line has been to taking the lead. They're moving their way forward. They've got more cars. They've got more momentum. Richard Regan Jr. still in control with Josh Conker. Is the bottom about to finally come in? We'll have to see. It's 3 private label Team Hype cars versus 1 private label Team Hype car and 1 Phase 2 Chassis Works car. Still not going to work out down the back straight. The momentum's still not building up, but they're inching closer.
Inching closer indeed, as now we go 3 wide at the back of the field. You got Sean Powell up on the top shelf at the moment in the Liquid Molly Chevrolet. He's not able to make any kind of speed, though nobody is willing at the moment to go with him, as we're going to continue to work our way through this field with Brandon Walter trying to find some speed up the middle. He's got at the moment Ross Cato to give him a helping hand.
And Sean Powell up there in the familiar blue and gold and Liqui Moly car. He's trying to get up there to find his teammate. They started right next to each other on the grid, 23rd and 24th. And Powell has just been mired at the back of this pack. He hasn't been able to move his way forward at all. He's actually fallen, I think. He's actually lost positions since the start, while his teammate pushes Mark Kalin. And for the first time since the start of this race, we have a new leader on both the top and the bottom lines. Mark Kalin takes the lead for a moment. Regan goes up to the top. Trent Dinkel tries to get around him for a moment. But Richard Regan Jr. to the lead.
To the race lead we go as the 56 truck tries to make something happen up on the top shelf, trying to see if we can find any kind of speed. We are continuing to work our way through this race as Richard Regan Jr. will move up to that top shelf with Trent Dinkel being pulled along right behind him. Abner Acosta sits in line in 3rd on the outside lane. James O'Brien is side-by-side rolling with Mark Kalin for the 4th spot as they continue to run side-by-side for that 4th position.
Bad news for all you Scott Griffin fans at home. Unfortunately, he had a little bit of trouble in the tri-oval a few laps ago. and he is currently on pit road getting multiple minutes of damage. Unfortunately, we'll try and find a replay of that so we can diagnose what happened to him, but if we don't, apologies to the Scott Griffin fans at home. He is in trouble at the back of the field right now. We'll see if he can get that damage fixed and get back out and pick up a couple extra points. But up front, Richard Regan Jr. has jumped all of the private label team hype drivers still. His old buddy Mark Kalin, who helped him move forward, is now the driver, clogging up the bottom just a little bit. Conker and Kalin are trying to work together again, and it's that same spread that we saw before. It's about 4 cars on the top lane ahead of anything that the bottom lane could do.
A lot of drivers are just taking it nice and easy at the moment. They're not wanting to push this very hard at all. They are just willing to let this race settle on out and, just kind of relax into the groove of this thing. You can see a couple of drivers starting to get a little bit antsy deeper in the field. There's Cato's going to go 3 wide up the middle. He's also got looks like Johnson right with them as well in the number 81 car for YS Motorsports. The Toyota Camry making some moves as well, but again, that's allowing the rest of that outside lane to start to break clear. And once more, that inside lane just cannot get itself sorted up. Usually you see that inside lane be one of the more organized lines when it comes to plate track racing, but apparently not at the PRL, it would seem.
Still up on the third line, Sean Powell and Chris Hudson are now the odd couple trying to work up there. It looks like it actually is working. Hudson almost taps the wall on the outside, getting very, very high. Almost 4 wide down the back straight as James O'Brien tries to figure out where to go. Waldo Walton had to back out of that one. This is crazy stuff. All the shuffling. Look at Josh Conker moving up to the top line. Private label team hype have all found each other. All 4 cars are in the middle. And on the top, Chris Hudson and Sean Powell are still trying to move their way forward. And Sean Powell's teammate, Richard Regan Jr., is still in the lead of the race ahead of all of this craziness. It is a hornet's nest back here. Everybody trying to figure out where the heck am I supposed to go. It's an impossible solution to solve. Everybody's still rolling, though. Mark Kalin can't seem to decide where to go, though.
It's a tough run for a lot of the drivers in the middle of this pack, as now I think the lines are starting to fracture a little bit as we are past the 1/5 point in this race, as that middle lane is getting all sorts of checked up, because while they're just trying to run their own race, they've got drivers constantly bobbing left and right across their noses as they all try to switch lanes at the same time. Look at the third lane up on the top shelf. Chris Hudson be given a push by Sean Powell right up next to the wall. They're actually making up some ground on even the middle groove here. So the 45 and the 43 linking up. They seem to know what they're doing as the pair of Chevrolet start to push their way to the front.
You can feel the tension rising. You leave it to be silent for a few seconds, and it's almost like you can hear the tension. Josh Conker ditches his teammates, goes down to lead the bottom line again, and he actually finds another one of his teammates, Brandon Walter, down there. That's the 2 private label team hype black drivers from the black team of private label team hype. Walter and Josh Conker down there, and then the regular private label team hype squad, so to speak, of Dinkle, Acosta, and James O'Brien are all up on the top line. Dinkle pushes Regan out to a pretty big lead. I wonder, is that delivered? Are they going to try and swallow up Regan here, or are they happy to leave him out front to save a little, or to expend a little bit of fuel while they can save behind him?
I think this early in the race, you have to take fuel into factor. You can't always be pushing flat out, especially in a race where you are constantly on and off the throttle the entire race as well. Just kind of feathering it when you're up there in traffic. You can save so much fuel even just running behind the guy in second place. You don't want to be the guy in second if you're trying to save fuel. The guy in first is obviously doing the most work, but the guy in second is arguably doing even more work because they're the ones trying to push the race leader. The third place driver and back, that's where you want to sit at the moment, and that's where a lot of these drivers are sitting around at the moment. Those top 2 expending so much more fuel. I think that's why we haven't seen more moves up for the race lead as they continue to try to just save a bit of fuel here, try to get themselves over into the next couple of pit windows here, and maybe hope that they can run this race out relatively caution-free. It has been a season, it would seem, for caution-free race on the plate tracks for leagues all across iRacing, apparently. So it's been a good trend so far for Talladega, a track usually so known for causing some really hectic wrecks.
Yeah, we had a pretty long run. We had green flag pit stops in the truck race on Wednesday as well in the Precision Racing League, so I'm pretty happy to have this trend. It means the races go quicker, and it it means we have more cars running at the finish. So I, for one, am very, very happy to have some cleaner super speedway races for once. That was Richard Smith, by the way, who the field just dispatched of, who they lapped down on the apron. And also Steve Loving and Jose the Funky Colt Medina, two drivers always strong on the super speedways. They tried to back out. They tried to save themselves. Unfortunately, they have lost the draft entirely. So they're actually hoping that a caution comes out so they don't go a lap down. You can see Mike Witt now in the bright red Mug 26 going into the middle lane here. He's always strong on these super speedways as well. Finished second at Daytona last season. Could have beaten Clayton Ham, but the next-gen car was not able to pull out a line, and he ran into a wall of air. But right now, he's working his way forward in that middle line, sixth in line. Make that the bottom line, first in line.
Look at the guys up on the top side. Powell all out of shape as he tries to shove Chris Hudson further forward. Push to the corner is not typically regarded as the smartest idea, and it almost caused for them to get taken out. We're now 3x3 wide, and once again, it will be Ross Cato bailing out from the bottom side as he wants no part of what is taking place up front here. That was a good move at first for Chris Hudson and Sean Powell, but I think it only costed them in the long run, as now they've lost all of that momentum they once had down the back straightaway, and they have stagnated up on that furthest to the outside line.
This is when I start to think about that caution coming out, Nolan. That was the biggest checkup we've seen basically all night so far, around lap 18 here. If that keeps happening, if Sean Powell does another bad push on Chris Hudson, if everybody keeps swerving around like this, if we end up 4 wide, keep listing out the possibilities, but you can feel it starting to go a little bit crazy here. We'll ride on board with Chris Hudson, see if he's scared by Sean Powell at all. Looks like the answer is no. He just looks like he's running his own race and hoping that Sean Powell can keep pushing him forward here.
That bottom lane really faltering away at the moment, headed up by Paul Cromwell, and nobody willing to work with him at the moment as Chris Hudson. Huge look of concentration on the face of the number 43 as he continues to just slowly work his way around. You don't often see racers sitting forward in their sim rigs, do you? Just trying to get that little bit closer to their screens. Usually they're more chill, relaxing back a little bit because they know they're here for the long run. If a driver's sitting up and forward like that, that's how you know it's getting intense.
Yeah, that's what I do coming to the line at the end of a race. Like, you know, the final corner in Montreal, you got to lean forward a little bit, get the most speed coming to the line. So we'll see if Chris Hudson breaks that out when we get a photo finish in 75 laps time here, I'm sure. Still working with Sean Powell. We saw Sean Powell have a little bit of internet trouble on the previous lap. That's unfortunately been a trend with Sean Powell in previous seasons, which I can unfortunately relate to. He still seems pretty solid, still seems to be in the race, but when you're blinking around, not only can you not help the driver in front of you, but you also can't really help yourself. But he is back here. He's definitely still swerving around a little bit. Mark Kalin running his line. Powell almost coming down into him. And Sean Powell, I think, had to check up to make sure he didn't get into Kalin there, and that completely broke up the run they had in the top line again.
And now that single line in the middle starting to grow further and further up, but it is notable that while that might be extended out for the rest of the field, Richard Reagan is not letting that line go to the bottom or the top. He likes to stay dead middle of the racetrack. I think he might have some of the most momentum over there. You might think he's definitely coordinating with teammates right behind him, a bit more so than it seems the rest of the field is coordinated at the moment. As now you can see a lot of drivers starting to split apart at the moment as you got guys filtering all the way down through this field. It's starting to get double and single file again, especially towards the rear of this pack where you're looking at the moment of the battle for 25th. You still got all the way back to 30th. Still a one long line, but as we continue to draw closer and closer to the pit stops, it's not going to stay that way forever.
Green flag pit stops will hopefully come here soon. Here comes Trent Dinkel. He ditches his teammates, or does he? They're working together. They're working together to swallow up Richard Regan Jr., and they have been greatly successful. Powell goes down to the middle to find his teammate Regan, but James O'Brien and Abner Acosta now take over the lead. Trent Dinkel trying to work the high side. Josh Conker is well up there with him. It's a huge shuffle in the middle of the field. Mark Kalin finds himself in the epicenter, tries to back out of the eye of the hurricane, and Powell and Regan have become separated again. And I think Sean Powell's going to be pretty frustrated. He finally got a peek at the lead, and he's going back to basically where he started 20 laps ago. James Dewar almost gets turned by Richard Regan Jr. Dewar leading that bottom line. It's not a place we often see him, and the first push from Regan almost ends up turning James Dewar And Regan says, I'm going up to work with Mark Kalin now. Chris Hudson pulls out in front of Regan. It is very, very close scores, almost 4 wide, about 7 cars back there. Everybody's still trying to figure everything out. Powell looking where to go. Him and Kalin haven't been best buddies in this race so far. Dewar's still trying to figure himself out. Regan finally elects to go up with Kalin. I think we've solved that, but something tells me it's not over.
That dreaded caution flag is only ever one mistake away, and that mistake can be so fine at a track that is as fast as this one. Abner Acosta still running that top line with James O'Brien right behind him. Neither of these drivers willing to give an inch at the moment. They are continuing to run up by that wall on the top shelf and pull the rest of the field along with them. All the way back to 7th is single filed out. Richard Regan Jr. starting to make ground again as he continues to try to push his way back up to the front of this field. And it looks like Chris Hudson wants to help him out as he's going to go to the bottom side. And Regan looks like he's thinking about trying to help him out. Hudson, though, going to push up and force him to help him out. That's going to get tight off of turn number 2 as Regan doesn't want to work with the Krispy Kreme Chevrolet. He's going to go to the inside line. Sean Powell's going to go with them as they continue to push each other. That's going to give a 4-car breakaway to the private label quadruple up in front.
I can't think of anything crueler than not working with the donut car. Richard Regan Jr. and Sean Powell back out of that one. They're going to lead the bottom line, and now Mark Kalin again is going to be all on his lonesome. It's like nobody wants to work with Mark tonight. He's going to move up to the high line, find himself in the middle of Mike Witt and Eric Papineau, and he'll finally get back on his run. But like you said, private label team hype 1, 2, 3, 4, and then 6. Brandon Walter still has a 1 car between him and his teammates Waldo Walden. We'll see if they can displace of him, but it has been domination up there on the very, very high line. Brandon Walter actually now goes down to the bottom line with Richard Regan Jr., and Walter was the driver who just got turned there. The big one strikes at Talladega. That's about the whole field on the apron here. Richard Regan Jr., Trent Dinkel, the list goes on. That was the largest percentage of the field right there.
And all of that started, I think, with one small bump between Brandon Walter and Richard Regan Jr. Walter got turned up into the middle of the pack, and it was on from there as drivers scrambled to avoid this wreck. And there's just nothing you can really do in a situation like that one. So a lot of the guys having really nasty hits in this one. Drivers went all the way from the top into the bottom, and tell you what, that was one of the bigger wrecks that I think we have seen in a while when it comes to the PRL competition. Take a look at this one from the air. There you can see him get turned up into the field. Here goes everybody scrambling to the bottom side. Just you think you're safe on the low side. Nope, there you go. And I think that might have been Eric Haig in the 89 that just barely found a way through by the skin of his teeth by going down to the wall.
He might have made it through. We'll have to ride on board with him. Joao Guerra did not make it through. James Dewar did not make it through, but let's ride on board here with Eric Haig. Multiple cars behind, about 20th in line if my calculations are correct here, but down the back straight. You can see the smoke start to kick off. He bails immediately. Everybody else does as well. Whoa, Paul Crumry. Well done, Eric Haig. Well done. Great avoidance. Great heads-up driving. It always helps to get on the brakes when an accident happens in front of you.
I wonder what goes through a driver's heads when you see something like that in front of you. Like, you're going to the inside, you're right down by the wall. You think you've had it made, and then all of a sudden, oh, hey, here's 2 more cars just to add some spice to the mix. And here you can see once more Trent Dinkel getting completely collected in this one. It's interesting that a good chunk of the drivers actually got collected below that yellow line as people were just running into each other trying to get around this whole mess.
And you also saw Trent Dinkel, Tim Collier, Mark Kalin involved in an accident of not his own causing for, I think, the 8th time in the last 2 weeks. But all the survivors and some of the damaged cars are all going to bring it down pit road here on lap number 26 to get 4 tires and fuel. Trent Dinkel pulls into the first pit stall with heavy, heavy damage to the left side of that car. I'm sure he's going to be sitting there for quite a while. But that car should still be running, and that is another realization of the curse of the random number generator. Trent Dinkel, heavily, heavily damaged. Josh Daniels still sitting there, and quite a few others. But the race off pit road was won by Abner Acosta. No real surprise there. O'Brien, Powell, Papineau, and Chris Hudson are the top 5, and everybody else is going to be sitting on pit road getting heavy repairs, I'm sure. Here in the Joao Guerra, Josh Conker, James Dewar, and Brandon Walter of course, 4 drivers who you saw take some of the biggest hits in that pile up there, they all got meatball flags, so they will all be sitting in the pits for quite a while, I am sure, and I think Trent Dinkle has completely disconnected from the session already, but he's locked into the next round of the playoffs. He can probably get away with that. But also, there's a season-long championship to think about, so he better hope that this is his drop week. The championship leader quitting on lap number 27. We'll see if he makes it back in the session.
Looking back at things, it is looking at the moment like we had about 22 cars caught up in that wreck. We've got all the way back at the moment to just wait for my score to update here. 23rd, looks like it'll be 24, 25 cars making trips back to the racetrack. I'm counting the cars to see leaving pit road as well. Made that now 26. So we didn't lose too much of the field, but a good chunk of the drivers here do still have damage on them. Good thing a lot of the hits of that weren't really hard. I'm seeing mostly clean cars actually all throughout the field at the moment, leaving pit road. So it looks like we're still going to have a good chunk of this field fully up to speed. They're just going to have to hope they don't have another nasty wreck like that in another 25 laps.
Unfortunately, the hits keep on coming for Charles Sumner as well. Earlier this week, the hurricane in Florida ripped a tree out of his lawn, and now he has a PC lockup while coming into his pit box, and he smacked the pit wall a little bit. So that number 98 car, the Tropicana car, is going to be a little bit down on speed as well, but probably less down on speed than some of the cars around him because he didn't get involved in that accident. He just had a little bit of a scrape with the pit wall, and that's Trent Dinkle leaving the pit stall. So my timing was actually wrong. I got to issue an apology to Trent here. I thought he was gonna rage quit, but no, he's still very much in the session, and he hasn't even gone a lap down. So that's a lesson in not reading too much into the live timing. Trent Dinkle rejoins the race.
Lights are out aboard the iRacing pace car, so green flag this time by still have 30 cars on the lead lap, and that's honestly pretty good, all things considered. All the way back to 30th place will be rejoining the racing circuit. A couple of guys did come down for second pit stops under this latest caution, probably just topped up on some fuel. Maybe again, just a little bit more damage repair, just didn't want to risk going a lap down by staying down on pit road, but looks to be 30 cars getting set to take it back to the green flag this time around. Out of 35, or out of 34 that started this race, again, not bad at all considering the scale of that wreck.
Getting ready to get back going here at Talladega. The lights on the pace car are off, and again, we've got to start thinking playoffs here. Look at some of those drivers up in the top 10 who are not locked in, who are below the cut line. Charles Sumner, who I just mentioned, he's got a little bit of damage. He's going to be on struggle street, but Eric Papineau is up there in 3rd place on the top line, or actually 4th place technically. Adam Zemke, I believe, was completely clean through that accident, and Waldo Walden, who we saw racing very, very well up on the top line, he is still around, damaged back in 18th. So Eric Papineau, probably the best chance of any driver to move his way up through the order. Charles Sumner reporting that his wheel is still very much straight, so whatever damage he has is probably just cosmetic. We'll see once the pace car pulls off here how well Charles can stick with the pack. But up front, it's Abner Acosta, James O'Brien, Sean Powell, and Eric Papineau, the first 2 rows. Abner Acosta takes control of the field. He's going to drive everybody through the trioval here, still at pace speed, probably going to wait as long as humanly possible, or will he jump it a little bit to let his teammate James O'Brien come in behind him? We'll have to wait and see, but the green flag is in the hands of Barney the Flagman. We're going racing once more at Talladega. Acosta instantly up to the high line to meet his teammate James O'Brien, and now we're really going racing at Talladega.
Back to racing as the momentum is once again on the top side as Private Label runs 1 and 2 with Abner Acosta and James O'Brien working together side by side between Sean Powell and Eric Papineau for 3rd. But that inside lane doesn't take long before it starts to lose all of that momentum that they might have once had on the race start. There's a look to the inside. Papineau not wanting to hang around for long, and Mike Witt tried to go with him, but Jeff Hollingsworth was too quick for him, so Hollingsworth will beat Witt to the punch, and he's going to jump down to assist Eric Papineau, who's going to push for the race lead.
Papineau trying to get pushed by Hollingsworth. The bottom working a little bit better on the shorter run than I think it did on the initial start, but still Papineau not able to lead the lap at the line. Acosta still very much in control with his teammate and with Mike Witt behind. Look at Tom Amasi as well, fourth in line. Another driver who we always look for at these super speedways to be able to move his way forward. Unfortunately, we also look to Tom Amasi to be a driver who gets erased in the big pileups and get taken out in other people's accidents, but that didn't happen just yet. He's actually survived one of these big ones for once, and hopefully that bodes well for the next 65 laps. I really hope we get to see Tom Amasi finish one of these races for once. He deserves it. He has the worst luck of anybody in this series. But anyway, Abner Acosta still leading the high line. Papineau gets a little bit out of shape on the bottom, but he has pulled away, or pulled ahead rather, just a little bit. The push from Jeff Hollingsworth working very, very well. For the first time tonight, Eric Papineau is actually going to lead a lap at the line.
Eric Papineau, new race leader. Now the tables have turned. Now it's the outside lane that is struggling for speed, which makes you wonder if perhaps the reason why the inside lane faltered so much that first run was not having the right drivers to push each other up in the lead of this thing, because now you can see Papineau, Hollingsworth, and Powell all clear at the moment of Abner Acosta. Acosta's able to get a good run down the back straightaway, but not so much that he's going to be able to have the momentum to take the race lead back by the time they hit turns 3 and 4. Now it's the inside lane where you want to be. You have to wonder if maybe Private Label is going to try to force their way into that bottom line.
They're not going to find an opening for about 10 cars back, unfortunately. So if they want to get down there, they've got a lot of organization to do, unfortunately. But Eric Papineau, look at that control of the field. And Jeff Hollingsworth right behind him as well. Jeff has had a great season so far. A pair of fifths, you know, I'm sure he would have been hoping that he would have a win by now, but the utmost consistency, 5th and 5th at Bristol and Texas, 2nd in the championship behind Trent Dinkel. So with things as they finish now, he still wouldn't have a win, but I believe that would make Jeff Hollingsworth the 2022 Season 4 points leader in the PRL NASCAR Cup Series. Of course, he's not a playoff driver for the full year, but there is still this season championship to win. Some drivers might have forgotten about that, and Jeff Hollingsworth performing very, very well in these first 3 races so far, but there's still 63 laps to go. Can't get ahead of ourselves just yet.
63 laps, as you mentioned, still remaining in this race, and it is still Eric Papineau to be the race leader up in front as that outside lane continues to stumble as they lose more and more momentum. Now all the way back to 5th place have cleared the number 5 private label Chevrolet Camaro ZL1, but I think this shot is a good one here of how the momentum can shift on the back straightaway. You can see the inside lane not getting as hooked up. You get a good push off of turn number 2, and you can make up some serious ground on the back straightaway, but it's all going to go away. We can't back it up in 3 and 4. You see the 45 going up. Sean Powell wants to go for the race lead now as he's going to link up with that outside group and hope that they're going to go with him, and it looks like they're not going to ditch him in that middle line. They're wanting to get a bit of extra assistance and getting their way up to the front of this field. I'm sure they won't complain about giving Sean Powell a little bit of a helping hand here.
Sometimes in these super speedway races, there's some unfamiliar faces that you're forced to work with up at the top of the field. Eric Papineau, not an unfamiliar face to the series, but sometimes an unfamiliar face to leading the field. And Sean Powell, Abner Acosta, they've raced each other for the wins in just about every single track in the PRL NASCAR Truck Series and the Cup Series as well. But now Abner is going to push Sean Powell forward here. Before he was pushing Richard Regan Jr., Sean's teammate, to the lead. Now he pulls Sean Powell, or pushes Sean Powell rather, to the lead. We'll see if Powell ditches Abner instantly or elects to stay up high. He is not quite clear of Eric Papineau. Now he is. It's decision time for Sean Powell. He's going to stick up there with Abner Acosta for the moment.
Sticking up there just for the time being, but for how long? As Sean Powell continues to push his way as he led that lap at the line. Papineau still fighting back on the inside lane, not wanting to give the upper hand up to Sean Powell. Powell trying to see if he can make something happen, anything happen, and is going to get that push that he needs from Abner Acosta. He's going to clear now from Eric Papineau. Now, how long will James O'Brien and Abner Acosta be willing to work with Sean Powell is going to be the next big question. You can't end up running behind somebody for long if you want to retake the race lead and continue to lead laps.
Powell, Acosta, and O'Brien all clear of Papineau there, and they all move down to the bottom. I think that tells us everything we need to know. The bottom line clearly still the preferred place to be. And Powell, Acosta, and O'Brien now take the lead at the bottom and the lead of the race once more. Mike Witt now leads the top with Tom Amasi and a few other stragglers. But you've just got to be realistic. There's not the power up there anymore. And James O'Brien actually ditches his teammate to go up to the top line. This might be what you were talking about earlier, Nolan. Private label team hype might be trying to control both lanes, but Mike Witt's swerving all over the place. That's got to worry O'Brien a little bit.
Kind of swerving all over the lane in the moment as he continues to try and see if he can sort himself out of this field. There it is, the look. Sean Powell has been abandoned. And there Acosta back to the top side as James O'Brien going to go up there with him. Powell's going to check up that inside lane now as he's going to catch Eric Papineau off guard. Starting to catch more lap traffic in the form of James Durr, but I don't think they're going to have much of a problem with him. Lap traffic so far tonight has been absolutely phenomenal of staying out of the way. Mike Witt has broken clear as well with the top three as they continue to now lead from that outside line.
And it's a huge breakaway. Sean Powell just lost all momentum, the entirety of the top five. All completely clear Sean Powell here. They're all going to elect to stay up high now. So I think they've just proven what I said 2 laps ago wrong again. Private label team hype, they still love that top line. They're not interested in going back down to the bottom. They're going to let Sean Powell figure that out on his lonesome. Mike Witt, Tom Amasi, Lou Christian, Pat Harvey, the list goes on. They're all going to stick up there with private label team hype as well. We're going to ride on board with Lou Christian. We're going to watch his ever-focused face and the shortest staircase in the world behind him. And he's just going to ride this train.
I think at the moment he is more than content to just kind of sit around at the moment and ride where he's at. Still not even halfway through what has been a very long race so far. No need to force the boundaries of what you can get away with just yet here at the Talladega Superspeedway. I think it's a point now where you just have to kind of get yourself a bit sorted for the long run here. Now that you got yourself up in front, you don't need to lead every lap. You don't need to push every single lap. That's something that, it's honestly something that a lot of drivers seem to forget when you're running as fast as a track as this. And I think part of the reason why that is the pack racing mentality. There's not a lot of places where you're racing so tightly together, and that makes you get a bit of a sense of urgency that you wouldn't get anywhere else where the field can get so spread out really quickly.
Tom Amasi is clogging up this bottom line, unfortunately. You can see Sean Powell get frustrated. It's like body language, but with a car. He is all over the place. He's desperately trying to push Tom. He's desperately trying to force him into a mistake, I think, so he can just peek down to the bottom and get rid of him. But the top line is just expanding and expanding its move forward. Charlie Woods now moving forward. And look at Trent Dinkle in 8th place, heavily damaged in that pileup. Clearly not heavily damaged enough for it to matter, because he is still very, very much in this race after getting that damage repaired. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, all still clear. Tom Amasi on the top almost. But Tom Amasi's fighting back. Just as I say that, he decides to prove me wrong. He's going to clear Charlie Woods, though. Still, 5 cars on top, and they're going to run into the lap car of Joao Guerra, who is going to literally give them as much space as humanly possible by rubbing the wall in the tri-oval. Shouldn't be too difficult here, going 2 wide through lap traffic, but if we're ever 3 wide going through lap traffic, you saw how that ended on Wednesday night. Doesn't end well.
We even saw that just a little while ago about how pushing people in the wrong places makes things not necessarily go to plan as well, with that big crash that we had earlier on, as that outside lane with all of that momentum in the world. As in fact, Tom Amasi started to make the moves here as he's trying to be shoved by Sean Powell. Sean Powell, though, just can't link up at the moment with the 05 Chevrolet. It's a tough run to be able to push somebody properly here, because when you're going this fast, every little bump, every little nudge is going to really cost you a lot of time. As in fact, the private label team is going to get broken up in front, as Mike Witt's going to make a charge for the race lane contact, and he's going to dump Adler Acosta, takes out the other private label teammate. We're crashing again. It's the second big one and a roadblock down in turn number 1.
Who wasn't involved in that? That's impossible to tell. Josh Daniels just barely gets on the brakes. Mark Kalin does as well. Unfortunately, Tom Amasi, the bad luck kid, involved yet again. Charles Sumner trying to make it through. But name every driver who was just in the top 10, and they were probably involved. The SGE sports drivers up on the top were trying to get out of line. Witt, Christian, and Harvey. Witt clips Acosta. And there goes literally everybody else into them. A few drivers made it through, Collier, Medina, Hollingsworth. But if you were up there on the racetrack, you were getting involved in that accident.
I think this is now the case where everybody that went low did get around it, as opposed to the other way around where everybody that went low got involved. On board once again with Eric Hag, and as he had another major wreck avoidance of this one, he's kind of figuring out where do you want to go. Sees him coming down low, you're just going to go a little bit lower, probably a bit much, but hey, take some liberties when you're kind of in a situation like that. So make that now 2 for Eric Hag to get around. You got to avoid the wrecks if you want to get a good finish, and he's been avoiding all of them so far.
Yeah, Eric Hogg using a revolutionary strategy of getting on the brakes when there's a pile up in front of him. A lot of drivers using that, and it's working to their favor, but Mike Witt actually survived that accident after hitting Acosta. He made it through, and then the calamity ensues behind him. O'Brien, Amasi, James Dewar has a meatball, Tom Amasi has a meatball, Luke Christian has a meatball flag as well. So heavy damage for all 3 of those drivers. They are all going to be stuck in the pits for a multitude of laps, I'm sure. And that is good news for a driver who I mentioned at the top of the broadcast. Joe Hoggard did not make the start. He showed up late, couldn't tell you why, but 36 laps late, Joe Hoggard has joined the field, and there's 53 laps left to go in this race. Joe Hoggard has the potential to make up multiple positions here, and points matter for every single position. Precision in the Precision Racing League. That's a pair of words that are hard to say together. But Joe Hoggard trying to make up every single point he can, and that's the spirit I love to see. Joining late, but still trying to pick up any points he can.
What was that? Position
precision. I
was going to try to show you up there on that one by pronouncing it correctly on the first time, and even I faulted on that one the first time around. It sounds easy until you actually try to say it, and then the mouse just go, yeah, we're not doing that today. We're going to go this route instead.
Yeah, your mouth needs precision in its position to say those 2 words together, and I don't have that right now. But what a lot of the drivers do have is another trip down pit road. Mike Witt, as if he didn't just cause that accident, is going to exit the pits first. He's going to win the race off pit road here over Jeff Hollingsworth, and Sean Powell, I think, is second. Sean Powell's teammate, Richard Regan Jr., and a few others that are somehow undamaged exit the race off pit road. Tim Collier, I think, does have damage, but he got damage in the first accident, no more damage in the second one. But you can see the used car lot. It goes all the way down the Talladega pit road. Dinkle, Acosta, Woods, Sumner, Papineau, Kalen, Richard Smith. The list goes on. Heavy damage for about half the field.
Heavy damage, as you mentioned, for a lot of those drivers, and I think that's really going to cost a lot of these guys here in the long run, as now we might be seeing that car count starting to drop dramatically. I think that was one of the big differences about this wreck. The big one earlier on, there were a lot of cars involved, but it was a very high-speed crash, so there weren't all that many actual hard hits. It was more just people kind of dinging off each other and going for lazy spins. There was a lot more hard hits in this one, with drivers just piling into each other, sometimes whole seconds after the incident had actually taken place, and I think that is what has caused a lot more of our field to start to dwindle as a result of that one. You know, I feel bad though for Eric Papineau, who is still in pit road getting all that damage repaired. He's gonna like to be off pace for a good chunk of this race now as a result of that. Same with the private label guys, but they were having such a good battle up in front, and it's that one mistake that we talked about. It's happened twice now. One guy not knowing quite where to position the car in that exact moment leads to all this.
Powell and Regan are going to come back down pit road again. Strategically, I think, to go to the back of this train. Jose Medina is going to join them as well. Our playoff drivers, Mike Witt, of course, was only 6 points above the cut line, and he made it through that accident at the head of the field. So if he wins tonight, that'll be some solace for him. Probably not solace for the rest of the field behind him. Byron McDonald, also 1 point above the cut line, is still alive out on track. He's in 11th, so could be a good day for him. And 0 points above the cut line, literally in the most precarious position you can be in, was Luke Christian, and he was heavily involved in that last accident. So that's going to be bad luck for Luke Christian. That means good luck for some of those 4 drivers under the cut line. Waldo Walden is still out on track in 5th. He still has the potential to win. He basically needs to win to advance to the round of 12. And of course, Papineau, Zemke, and Charles Sumner have all run into assorted amounts of bad luck as well. But There's still 51 more laps to work out all of the playoff scenarios. There's still 51 laps to wipe out a few more cars, but we got half a lap more to go, Nolan. We're going to be going to our second restart of the day, and Mike Witt's going to be leading a field that's probably somewhat angry at him.
Yeah, he's going to have to be a bit careful. I think after seeing that, not a lot of drivers are going to be willing to work with him as a result of that one. So hopefully it will all be smooth sailing before too long. It is now looking like 26 cars are left on the lead lap with a few more drivers eliminated, but you've still got, as mentioned, 25 plus cars still in the field. So still doing decently on car counts, but it stands to reason that if we continue to get a wreck every 20 to 25 laps, give or take, we're going to be down to about 10 cars by the end of this race.
Abner Acosta joining the back of the top train there as the field reforms. All the drivers who were trying to get as much damage as possible fixed on pit road are all going to join the back of this train. Still 26 cars on the lead lap, which is a lot more than I think some of us would predict. But the iRacing sedan pace car pulls off onto Talladega's pit road once more. For the third time tonight, we're getting a restart. Or for the second time, rather, we're getting a restart. For the third time, for the first time, Mike Witt is going to lead the field to green. There's been a lot going on tonight. It's hard to keep track of all of it. But Mike Witt, Jeff Hollingsworth, the front row here. Through the tri-oval we go. We're going back green at Talladega.
And how is that for a launch from Mike Witt as he takes off from Chris Hudson and Waldo Walden? And in fact, it might have just been that outside lane. Jeff Hollingsworth got a terrible start. The top were already clear from the inside.
Tim Collier in that school bus car trying to lead the top line. Paul Crumry is going to go up there to try and lead it as well. And Mike Witt and Chris Hudson are going to make a top line of their own. Everybody's trying to figure out early, where do we place ourselves? Where's the optimal place to be? Chris Hudson goes back down to the bottom. Mike Witt joins him back down there at the bottom. I think Hudson might be trying to ditch Witt, and Witt's not letting it happen. And unfortunately, he's got no help behind him to help him do that. I think Ross Cato in the background checking up again to go to the back of the train. But the top line really struggling to form up here. There's huge separation, even with Abner Acosta and Eric Papineau in the mix trying to move their way forward.
A lot more spread throughout the field now between different cars. Not a lot of drivers are being able to make any kind of move at the moment. I think that's all the damage now starting to accumulate over time as a result of all these bigger crashes that we've been having so far this race, as one by one drivers have been finding themselves losing the tail end of the draft. But you've still got the top 24, so still sticking comfortably together at the moment. But even then, Ross Cato starting to drop back a little bit from the main runners.
Top line still on struggle street here. Byron McDonald, a driver who could really use a win tonight, pulls up to the top ahead of Paul Crumry. See if Byron McDonald can be the driver who draws that top line forward. 4 drivers: Byron Johnson, Byron McDonald, Tim Collier, Paul Crumry, and now the private label team hype drivers join them as well on the top of Acosta and Walter and Dinkle, and Richard Regan Jr. and Sean Powell of Phase 2 Chassis Works join the top as well. There is an armada of strong cars. But they're at the back of the train on the top line, and they're going to have to dispatch of Johnson and Collier and Crumry and McDonald. And how are they going to do that? Do they elect to make a third line, or are they content to just hang around here? So still 47 laps to go.
And now a much more processional look into things at the moment as the outside lane's got itself reformed. I think this is the field we're going to be stuck with now throughout the rest of this race. 22 cars still up to speed. Everybody else so far has only been losing ground due to all the damage that they had collected over the last 2 big ones or so. And now you can see Byron McDonald making that switch to the top side. He wants to lead the outside lane from Paul Crumroll, who will be able to save a bit of fuel now and become the pusher as Byron McDonald starts to work his way up through the field.
Mark Kalin taking a little bit of a peek out of line. I'm not sure that was entirely deliberate. Now Paul Crumry ditches Byron McDonald. Byron McDonald will not get to lead that top line, and I think that might be deliberate from Byron. He's going to fall to the back of this train, get out of trouble, and Pat Harvey gets turned to the background. Pat Harvey and Jose Medina. It's a two-car accident, and the caution is out at Talladega for a two-car accident. Ross Cato had to do some big avoidance there as Pat Harvey ends up down in the bottom. But that was a disagreement for about 17th place, and the caution is back out at Talladega for Pat Harvey and Jose Medina.
Going to look at the RaceSpotTV replay as Pat Harvey on the bottom, Jose Medina on top, and that's honestly about a carbon copy of what happened on the last caution. And Jose Medina just turned down left, and there's no excuse for it. He just dumped the 67 who was already in the inside line.
Yeah, Jose Medina, unfortunately, will probably be starting at the back of the field next week at the Charlotte Roval for definitely causing that caution. And Pat Harvey, just the innocent bystander there. I'm not sure how heavy his damage is because he kind of had a car in the middle of him and the wall to crunch a little bit, but I'm sure it will be heavy damage there. So Medina and Harvey both join the used car lot at the back of this field. And we will find the pace car again. It's going to be a long lap around here because of where the caution came out, but Mike Witt will join back up here. 46 laps left to go. We've already come down pit road, I think, twice now. You only get 4 sets of tires, so there's only 2 sets left, Nolan. With 46 laps left to go, can you afford to come down and take tires again, or are you going to have to save them for a little bit later?
I think at this point, you can afford to wait just one without having to be able to come on down to pit road. You should be able to stay out there for a little longer. You've only been out here running on this last green flag run for what, maybe 5-6 laps or so. I don't think we're gonna have much of a problem there. I would say maybe we get around to lap 20. That would be a good point where you might want to come on down to there. That would be 20 laps to go.
Here comes Mike Witt. It's a last-second decision. Witt comes in. Hudson stays out. Hollingsworth stays out. Crumry, Johnson, McDonald doesn't. Yeah, everybody but about 4 drivers has elected to come down pit road. But we'll see. Do they elect to take tires, or is it just going to be a fuel stop only? We'll watch pit road here. We'll see what everybody's decided. I have to imagine that not everybody's going to take tires. Could get a little bit of shuffling here. But Hudson, Hollingsworth, Crumry, and Johnson, they say, we're not coming down now. There's probably going to be another caution. We'll wait for that one.
Interestingly enough, a good chunk of drivers are taking tires at the moment. I have to say, I'm not so sure if I'm in support of that move. I mean, heck, even at 1.5 miles, you'd really be pushing it to be wanting to pit for tires on just lap number 6. And surely these tires still wear so much that you would make any kind of difference there. Might be some people just thinking, well, if we're down here, we may as well. There might not be another caution later on, but I mean, 6 laps? I don't know. I wouldn't be making that kind of a call. I'm surprised that more people didn't go for the fuel-only strategy.
We may reach the time limit here tonight. There are 38 minutes left on the clock. There are 44 laps left to go in this race. If we go green all the way, you can do the math, but I'm not sure if we would make it, even if we do go green for 44 or 43 more laps once we do restart this race. So we will likely be racing against the clock at the end of this race, but we'll wait a little bit to worry about that, and we will just count down the laps as normal. The iRacing stand pace car should put its lights out once we cross the line here, and we will be ready to go racing once more for the second half of this race. We've still only completed just over half of this race. A lot of action left to go. A lot of cars still alive on the lead lap. Is it going to be a caution fest for the next 45 laps, or is it going to be green to the end? It's time to prognosticate, Noah. Let's think good things.
I think at this point, you're going to be wanting to wait. I think it's still a bit too soon to be kind of thinking in the mindset of how am I going to get to the front. Maybe think about that again. Maybe about 20 laps to go, 15, even 10 laps to go. I think that's when you can start, thinking about wanting to make those moves. But at the moment, there's just still too much time left to be able to want to risk having that happen. I think at this point, these guys got to be more focused on making sure you don't hit that time limit instead.
Eric Haag and Byron McDonald and Abner Acosta and Adam Zemke and a few others have elected to bring it down pit road once more to either go to the back of the train or put some more fuel in the car. Also Steve Loving, Richard Smith, Richard Regan Jr., Charles Sumner, Ross Cato, and Sean Powell. So lots and lots of drivers just trying to maximize the damage they can get fixed, the fuel they can put in the car. We're going to be seeing a lot of these caution cycles where everybody pits about 3 times, I'm sure. But maybe we won't if there are no cautions until the end of this race. We'll have to wait and see. But we have a new leader again for the first time since Mike Witt took over the lead. It's Chris Hudson who will lead us to this restart after not pitting. Jeff Hollingsworth, Byron Johnson, Paul Crumry also did not bring it down pit road under that last caution. Robert Besaw Jr., Waldo Walden, Mike Witt, Mark Caitlin, Josh Daniels, and Eric Papineau are the top 10 as they run, and everybody else will slot in as they do. It's kind of a mystery with everybody coming in on the last lap. There's going to be a very long line down at the bottom, but the lights are out in the iRacing sedan pace car. It's another restart, Nolan. It's a bunch of drivers on older tires with Hudson, Hollingsworth, Crumry, and Johnson. Tires don't really matter right now, but our drivers going to be thinking about swallowing up these 4 who stayed out. The teammates are kind of separated. What do you do? Where do you find your buddies?
If you wanted to find your buddies at the moment, you got to start looking around throughout the field, check your mirrors, check what's in front of you, see if you can maybe poke the nose out of line just a little bit to see if you can get a better angle over the field. If you're obviously in communication with your teammates, as I know a good chunk of these drivers will be, definitely be coordinating with them all throughout the next little while here. You got to get yourselves linked up because you know that you can only go so long having to rely on, just other drivers around you that at the end of the day are going to be wanting to work with their own teammates or going to just be out for themselves when that white flag drops.
iRacing sedan pace car pulls off onto pit road once more. Chris Hudson will lead the field to green. Jeff Hollingsworth on his outside. His teammate Charlie Woods is thinking about bringing it down pit road here. I think he's actually just going to go down to the apron so everybody can pass him on the outside. And Bentley Glazer, of course, one of our expected championship contenders, also not here in the field tonight. But the green flag awaits for the green Krispy Kreme car of Chris Hudson. And once more, as we watch him shift up through the gears, we're green at Talladega. The push on the top, far, far stronger. Jeff Hollingsworth is going to push Paul Crumry to, I believe, his first lap lead in the Precision Racing League. Paul Crumry takes the lead, but instantly he lets Jeff Hollingsworth take over the bottom again. Crumry goes back to the top, and as soon as Crumry gets to lead a lap, he's going to lose it. Jeff Hollingsworth now takes the lead at Talladega.
Hey, a lap lead is still a lap lead, and no one will be able to take that away now from Paul Crumry, as you can still see Jeff Hollingsworth now leading the field. You see a massive jump as to drivers in this field. That jump came all the way from the restart when one car went really slow down to the apron to check with the entire inside lane. It was actually Charles Wood that ended up being on the inside lane. That stacked up everybody in the back because they couldn't pass him or they were going to get black flag. I know he was trying to go down to the apron to let them have the space, but I think he did it prematurely and he slowed down in doing so. That is why this top running here of about first place all the way back to roughly around the 15th position here has got themselves almost a second lead over the rest of the pack.
See if they can bring that down. They've got they've got a strong car at the head of that train, Richard Regan Jr. So if anybody can lead them, and look at that, that is excellent formation. You don't often see drivers working together that well. They've all formed together in that single file line behind Richard Regan Jr. We'll see if they can build up that momentum to close that gap. He's a trustworthy driver to have at the head of your train, but it is still going to be a huge task to bring out a 2.6 second gap between 15th and 16th to join these two packs again. Paul Crumry still trying to make the top work. Joe Hoggard At the bottom is many, many laps down. His teammate Byron Johnson is still on the lead lap, and Tim Collier as well is trying to work with all of them as they move their way forward. But the top doesn't seem to be the place to be, especially when you're only a 4-car back. Because look at that train on the bottom. Mike Witt is now going to be clear of him. Josh Daniels is almost going to be clear of him. We got a long train at the bottom, and nobody seems to want to be up top.
Nobody wanted to make moves up onto that top side just yet, as it's still a question as to whether we'll be able to make it on time or on laps. There's currently exactly 31 minutes left to go before the clock expires with 40 laps. I think if they're able to go green from here to the end, we might just be able to make it, but it's going to be really, really close here. So I think a lot of the guys now might be trying to think about how they want to play this out, because obviously if you know you've only got a half hour in the race left as opposed to 40 laps, it's going to change up your mentality as well, because if you're going to end this race on time, it now becomes a question of, well, which lap is going to be the last lap? You have to make that decision, because you're not going to know when that last lap comes around until you're already on it when that clock expires.
By my calculations, while you were just talking there, it looks like 40 laps will take us 33.333333 minutes if we do go green to the end. But that also doesn't take into consideration any checkups. That also doesn't take into consideration any differences in lap time. So I don't think we're making it to the clock. But as we sit in a little bit of calm right now, as the field tries to sort itself out up on the top line, we are going to change what the abbreviation PRL stands for. It's no longer the Precision Racing League. It's not even Purified Racing Liquid. We are about to play race cars loud. We're going to stop talking, and you can listen to the sounds of the PRL. I, for one, enjoyed playing race cars loud there, and not much changed. This is always perfect. You would hate to see a race impacting moment during the playing race cars loud. But Jeff Hollingsworth still controls the field. The private label team hype drivers were trying to work together to move their way forward in kind of the back half of this train, and unfortunately they're just failing. Dinkel, Conker, and Walter at the back of your screen there, unable to make any progress. They're still just kind of stagnant back there. Right at the back of this train, and an update on the Richard Regan Jr. train that was trying to make up this gap. Unfortunately, that gap has more than doubled. From 15th down to 16th, two packs are now separated by 5 whole seconds. So everybody from 16th down, they're hoping that another caution comes out.
It's got to be frustrating for them as well, because you know that they probably could have been up here with these front runners. I mean, they are running comparable lap times to them, and if they were with that draft up in front, they would be running the same lap times. They're only about 0.2 of a lap slower. But the issue was, of course, that one car, because it was damaged, he went way to the inside to try to let them through, but he slowed down prematurely, checked it up that back portion of the field, which is why we find ourselves in the situation where we're at the moment. And this pack in front, it's just bigger. That's the only reason why it's so fast right now, is because it is just bigger. There is strength in numbers at a super speedway, and that is what we are absolutely seeing at the moment. Jeff Hollingsworth continuing to lead the way. So far, nobody's really been making any moves to try to get by him.
And Chris Hudson just riding in line here in the Krispy Kreme entry car. It's always a little bit of a brain fart to figure out what do you call these things. I keep wanting to call them trucks because I'm still in Wednesday mode, but no, these are the next gen cars. These are not trucks. The Krispy Kreme mobile still trying to chase down Jeff Hollingsworth. Paul Crumry, the top is working a little bit better right now. Tim Collier behind, Byron Johnson behind. They've worked up a little bit more momentum than before. Have they finally figured out how to work together here? Not quite. They're not going to be able to take the lead from Hollingsworth, or yes, they are. Paul Crumry's going to nose ahead. Is he going to have the momentum to clear him for the lead this time? Not quite, but the top is forming up. It's starting to work better. Hollingsworth moves up just a little bit, but he's not going to be able to stop the momentum of Crumry. I think Crumry might just lead this lap, but he's got to get Byron back to the back of him.
Gonna pull ahead with a little bit of side draft, and he will lead the lap that time by at the line. So Paul Crumry gonna take away another one, but now it looks like he might be trapped in the middle here as Byron Johnson tried to look high to get around him. It didn't happen though, as Jeff Hollingsworth started to pull away 1 and 2, but now the momentum's gonna go right back to the outside lane. Crumry clears, immediately goes down low. Now Byron Johnson's gonna be pushed by Tim Collier to try to see if he can push that number 81 Toyota Camry up to the race lead.
Crumry almost onto the apron. He's running so low below the yellow line, but he will be our leader here still. He's doing exactly the same thing. He's dipping a tire below the yellow line, and I think that's going to worry Jeff Hollingsworth a little bit, but he is still going to be in control here. Byron Johnson can't work it out up top. Tim Collier has not been able to get to the back of him. Now he does, but it's at an inopportune time through the corner. He's going to have to time that a little bit better, I think, down the back straight, because look at who's behind him. Trent Dinkle. You know that's going to be a strong driver, a strong car, even if it is damaged. That's a driver you want on your side, on your team here. Byron Johnson going to take the lead as Hollingsworth fails to push Crumry just a little bit. Is Johnson going to ditch him and go to the bottom? No, he's not. He's still happy on top.
The 81 still needed a little bit of assistance to make sure he can secure the race lead, but now it's Collier to let down Johnson. And Paul Crumry going to pull back in front in turn numbers 3 and 4. 31 laps to go. This time by as we continue to work our way around the Talladega Super Speedway. Lap after lap ticking away, as are the minutes. We are really getting down to it as there is your lead pack on the screen. Trent Dinkle, once again, laser focused on the cars in front of him as he slowly starts to work his way, still running down in 6th place.
I'm sure Jeff Hollingsworth is very disappointed to see Trent Dinkle alongside him right now, because with what we thought was going to happen to Trent, we thought he was going to be finishing in the 20s with heavy damage, but no, he's recovered phenomenally. He's up into the top 5. He's going to take the middle with Josh Conker. Here comes Private Label Team Hype through the middle. Collier's not going to leave him much room. Conker's going to turn his teammate. Trent Dinkle gets turned in front of the field. As soon as I mentioned his better luck in this race, it all turns around, and Trent Dinkle has been turned once more.
What a
The
save.
caution is back out at Talladega, and it was teammate on teammate.
Dinkle didn't even bring that car to a stop. He just cranked that to the bottom and got it back into gear, got it going. But yeah, the 54 just hooking his own teammate. Not a big rate this time around, but it did collect a fair number of drivers. I know the 3. Robert Esau Jr. got a piece of that. So did Joe Hogard, who got right into the middle of that one. Other than that, that was about it. Only the 4 cars collected. I know that I believe it was Pat Harvey that had a close call in the inside lane. Right there was the 64 getting into this one. Watch, he spins it back down here. The 6-7 arriving on scene, just barely avoiding that on the apron, but just shoves it back into gear, gets it rolling.
I think Joe Hoggard rather, got very, very lucky there with the power of the internet. I think Dinkle actually phased through him because that car doesn't look damaged at all. But after that, Paul Crumry will be in control of this race. Jeff Hollingsworth and Byron Johnson all survived that, and now Jeff Hollingsworth starts to think about that championship lead again. Dinkle still damaged, not terminally damaged, I don't think, but he's going to be at the back again. Jeff Hollingsworth is going to be in control of his destiny in the championship here. 30 laps to go listed, but we are most certainly on time here. We will not be able to finish every single lap under green here on the time, so we will be going to time, and everybody's going to bring it down pit road here. 21 minutes left to go. Potentially the last set of tires for some of these drivers as well.
And you see on the ticker, it just switched over to the time limit. 21.5 minutes remaining. Nowhere near enough time to get done 30 laps, especially at the end of this caution. Honestly, by the time we get to the end of this caution period, that timer will honestly be a bit closer to 15 minutes left to go in this race with how long the pace laps here are. You mentioned that at the start, just how long the laps are here. To put in perspective exactly how long, it's about 2 minutes and about 15 to 20 seconds every single pace lap around here. You tag on about 4 of those. Yeah, that's going to add up really, really quickly. Drivers off and away. A couple of guys only going for the splash and dash. First driver out going to be that of Byron Johnson, who took right sides only.
And also Robert Bisa Jr., Mike Witt, Mark Kalin, Eric Papineau, Skip Gandy, Pat Harvey, and Byron McDonald all elected to stay out. So more drivers than I initially thought, but also a lot of drivers who are at the back of the train who brought it down under some of the earlier caution running about 17, 16 laps ago. Here in the Mark Kalin's trying to judge his fuel here. He doesn't know if he can make it to the end. That's the waiting game here. That's the tough game to play, especially when you're at the head of this field, especially when we're running on time. You don't know how many laps are left now. We could run a lot more caution laps and have a lot less laps, and drivers who are shorter on fuel could make it to the end. Or we could go green for the next probably 18, 16 minutes to the end, and you're going to run out before the checkered flag comes out.
I'm going to be honest, I can't remember the last time I've actually done a race that was based off of time. I think the last one I did was a 6-hour endurance race at Daytona, believe it or not. And that was on the oval with the next-gen cars as well. That was about a year ago at this point, I think. But that race ended on the yellow flag. And now the big crucial thing about this race now going out on time, there's no green, white checkers anymore. If we have another late race caution and that time runs out, this race will end under caution.
While we can, I'd like to ride on board with Mark Kalin here because we've noticed that he's shutting the car off completely and coasting. That's why you see Eric Papineau kind of pulling up. Is Eric actually going to go up there and push him? No, he's not. I think he's actually going to have to give up on shutting the engine off and coasting here because we're ready to re-rack everybody. But we're going to be ready to get going here in 2 2/3 of a mile once more. If my calculations are correct in my head, which they probably aren't, we'll go green with about 16 minutes 30 to go, which I think will be about 17, 18 laps or so to the end, but we'll let reality do the math. No point in calculating before it actually happens. The lights are out in the pace car. Robert Bisa Jr. will be something like the 6th or 7th leader of this race. I've lost count. And Mike Witt's back up front as well. So a lot of drivers in playoff contention in that blue highlight, still in contention for very, very good days here. But we can only wait and see. The cautions have been kind of unpredictable, Nolan. It hasn't always been the big ones. There have been a couple big ones, but we've also had single car accidents, 2 car accidents that have brought the cautions out as well. It's going to be unpredictable for the next 16 minutes.
See a couple of drivers also on the apron where they're doing the same thing, kind of shutting the car off and coasting just because it's a quicker path around the racetrack. So you're still completing the same distance while also conserving all the fuel as well. So that's all drivers that are concerned on whether or not they can make it to the end of this race on fuel. Obviously, the shut off and coast tactic, a very, very popular one that a lot of drivers have a tendency to go for, and understandably so, since it is actually quite effective. You can often save sometimes as much as half a lap to a lap of fuel if you end up doing it right. But I think at this point in time, I think you're right. You have to start giving up that strategy. You need to get set to get back racing. We're in crunch time. It's now at the point where you need to start thinking about how you're going to make those moves to get to the front.
There's a lot of drivers in the top 10 here going for their first PRL win. There's a couple drivers with a lot of wins. Of course, Richard Regan Jr. down there in 9th is, of course, the big Kachunga there. If he wins tonight, he actually ties Abner Acosta for 2nd all-time in PRL wins across all PRL series, not just the Cup Series. This will be Richard Regan Jr.'s 47th win, but we've got 16 minutes left to go once we cross the line to determine who will be the winner of this race. It could be anybody still on track right now, frankly, but the iRacing sedan pace car pulls off onto pit road once more. Robert Bisa Jr. takes control of the field. Mike Witt to his outside. See who comes out on top here. We'll see if we can get a green flag run going. The green flag is back out at Talladega, and we're going racing once more with Bisa at the head of the field. Besaw, Witt, Papineau, Harvey, SGE Sports 1, 2, 3, 4 on the top line, but at the bottom, Mark Kalin for Whataback is going to lead the first lap with an SGE Sports driver of Skip Gandy behind him and another SGE Sports driver of Byron McDonald right behind. So it was private label team hype domination at the head of the field at one point, but now it is well and truly an SGE armada at the head of the field. Their run at the top is going to die out just a little bit. Will Gandy and McDonald elect to go to the top to join him? No, but Richard Regan Jr. does. He goes up to lead the top line, and he's going to get ditched. They're not going to go with him. He's not going to be able to clear Besaw, and he's going to be stuck in the middle and likely fall all the way to the back of this train and maybe meet Josh Daniels in the middle. But it's almost like Besaw didn't want to work with him.
It's the dreaded sucker hold. There's always a couple of drivers every race that find out firsthand exactly like it was. In fact, I saw a nice, useful diagram of something just like that, and it goes something like this. You got the inside lane, the outside lane, and then that one driver in the middle who thought he had friends that wanted to work with him. But there's always the one where you're not going to be wanting to work with them, and it looks like a lot of these drivers not willing to back off anymore to work with somebody. They want to find their own way to the front of this field. One of those drivers as well going to be Skip Gandy, jumping up to lead the top line, and SGE Sports going to go to the top. The Whataback Racing 62 of Mark Kalin going to be falling back to second place as Byron McDonald now going to jump to the inside line to get around Gandy.
Byron McDonald ditches his 5 teammates to lead the race overall. Still 5 SGE Sports drivers up top, and look at 4th in line on the bottom. Ross Cato has been the driver backing out of everything all day long. That might bode well for his survival here, but all these drivers know it's crunch time. There are a finite amount of laps to the end of this race. Look at Phase 2 Chassis Works with Regan and Powell finding the small holes in the middle. Gandy's going to open the door. Is Kalin going to get out of the way? No. He's going to stay down there on the bottom. He's finally going to plug that hole. But how on earth did Phase 2 Chassis Works with Powell and Regan and the 54, the 56 and the 45 rather, how did they find that hole?
That was absolutely insane right there. They were rubbing doors at 180, 190 miles an hour somehow, able to keep it all in one piece. But we're 3 wide, multiple rows deep. These drivers know the end of this race is creeping up closer and closer. 13 minutes on the clock. Skip Gandy continues to lead, being shoved by Robert Besaw Jr. Kalin leads the middle line. McDonald leads the bottom. It's still 3 wide for second place, with Gandy leading the ball from the top shelf.
So many drivers in this top 10 have never won a race in the Precision Racing League before. So many drivers in more than the top 10. Basically everybody here is in contention for this win. Go all the way back to 25th, 26th. They're all still in this. Steve Loving pops out of line in the background of your screen there. But Besaw, Gandy, Mike Witt in control of the field. Harvey's going to be clear as well. Are they going to leave the top? No, they're not. Powell leaves his teammate, though, to find the bottom. He's going to be clear. Kalin, can Byron McDonald push Sean Powell forward in this race? He's not going to get to, because Powell's going to choose to go to the middle, and he's going to cause another accident. Powell was not clear of Byron Johnson. Adam Zemke involved. Trent Dinkle involved, and the caution finally comes out. I don't think Sean Powell was clear there. James O'Brien involved. Sean Powell still trying to recover. Tim Collier spun around, and a few other stragglers just getting through the mess.
That is unfortunate for Sean Powell and Byron Johnson. It was a bit of both. There was one driver coming up, one going down. They met in the middle and then up to the outside wall. A huge hit for a lot of the drivers in this field, including the number 9. I know Byron Johnson got shoved into the wall in a huge way, so did Pat Harvey. No one went down into the inside wall, but a couple of these guys came really close to it. Importantly, though, here, the time when this caution came out as, the 33 took a big hit for the 11, and he's going to go up and clean out the 51 as well. So they were wrecking a good chunk after that as well. But we are not done yet in this race. We will still have time, I believe, to get this race restarted.
I believe we should as well. We'll probably restart with about 5 or 4 minutes to go, I think, but we'll have to wait and see. Either way, there will be racing to the end here. The caution might come out after that. We might still end down to yellow, but we will get a chance at a restart here, guaranteed. Also, another driver I noticed make it through that accident, Eric Hogg. Again, the master of avoidance tonight, still has no damage on that car. He still made it through that accident, and another incredible job by Eric Hogg there. And after looking at that angle, I'd probably say that was more on Byron Johnson than anybody, but I don't know. Either way, a lot of unhappy drivers involved in that, and a few of them are going to come down pit road. Byron Johnson, of course, with damage, will bring it down pit road. I think I saw Eric Papineau as well behind him. But everybody else, they know they've got enough fuel to the end of this race. We're only going to get a couple laps once this race restarts, single digits. It's not a fuel worry anymore. It's just a worry about advancing your way through the field.
So essentially at the moment, we're getting set up for what is a green-white checker based on time. It's not something you see all that often, but that's kind of what we're looking at the moment. I mean, by the time we go green, we are going to be at that point of no return where a yellow flag would end the race under the caution period. And you see a couple of drivers still working their way up around. I think that's Lou Christian with a lucky dog working his way by on the outside lane. And in fact, it is, as he's going to get up and around. A lot of guys, though, wanting to stay out on this late race yellow flag as well. Only a small handful coming down to pit road, notably drivers that were collected to this one. Everybody knows now they can make it to the end, so they're not concerned anymore.
Unfortunately, after getting collected in, I think, his third or fourth caution, Trent Dinkle is officially out of the race. And if I'm remembering correctly, I don't think any of the Trent Dinkle cautions were actually his fault. So he's just been getting run over all night tonight, and that's going to be bad luck for our current championship leader. Unfortunately, probably not going to be the championship leader coming to the finish of this race coming into next week. But he's locked into the round of 12. So thinking about the 2022 overall playoffs, Trent Dinkle's still in great shape. For this season, he's going to have to hope that Talladega is a drop week and he can keep up the good form for the rest of the season. But the iRacing Sedan Pace Car is going to cross the line here to go around one more time. We'll re-rack everybody. An update on the order: Gandy, Besaw, Witt, McDonald, SG Esports 1, 2, 3, 4. Then Kalen and Hollingsworth. Then Harvey, Regan, Cato, and Conker are the top 10. Waldo Walden is currently 11th. He needs to win tonight to advance to the round of 12. And Abner Acosta, always just kind of sneaking around in these super speedway races. He has had not a very good season for a defending champion, and he might just come out of tonight with a top 10 by complete surprise. But the iRacing Sedan Pace Car will pull down pit road the next time around. 2 2/3 of a mile. We'll restart with about 5 minutes 30 to go, and that shapes up to be 4 or 5 laps to the finish here.
So a bit more than a green-white checkered finish. We're about...
It's like a double green-white checker.
Yeah, an extended green-white checker finish. It's a green-white checkered finish, we'll say. I don't think that's going to stick either.
I think that'll stick. That's pretty natural. I'm gonna use that when we restart here, but it's gonna be an exciting finish either way. And I used the random number generator at the start of this broadcast, kind of tongue-in-cheekly, but you're gonna need a random number generator at home because who knows who's going to win this? Is it going to be a first-time winner like Doug Evans on Wednesday in the trucks? Is it going to be Richard Regan Jr. tying Abner Acosta? Is it going to be Abner Acosta finally turning his season good and winning for the 48th time? Who knows? Going to be Mark Kalen making up for bad luck. It's about half the track to go, and this is going to be the highest intensity I think of anywhere all season, Nolan.
Talladega finishes always have a tendency to be massive highlights in people's seasons because they are always so thrilling at one point or another. They either feature a photo finish, a massive crash, or both. Which option do you think we're going to be going for this time around?
I mean, I'm hoping I could go for a massive crash coming to the line, but as long as we get the white flag, as long as we actually get to do it under green, then I'm cool with it. But I don't want to end under caution. Please, everybody, if you're listening, don't end this thing under caution. We're begging you.
I agree.
Hopefully they can live up to our expectations here. Skip Gandy, join the list of the drivers who have taken control of this race on a restart. Robert Besaw Jr. alongside him, then Witt and Byron McDonald. Like I said, make it a SG Esports quadumvirate at the head of this field. Then Mark Kalen, who has never won a race in the PRL Cup Series. He's won in the trucks, he's won in the MX-5s, never in Cup. And then next to him, 6th in line, Jeff Hollingsworth has won 2 PRL Cup races, but they were in the non-broadcasted league. Jeff Hollingsworth has never won a broadcasted PRL Cup race. We'll see if he can do it for the first time tonight. Gandy's never won. Witt's never won. McDonald's never won. Besaw has. Green flag is back in the air. We're going to decide a winner at Talladega, whether any of these drivers like it or not. The green flag is back out. 5 minutes 30 to go.
Saw Gandy immediately make that jump to the top shelf along with Mike Witt, as now they're going to run that outside lane. They know that's where the momentum is. They want to be in control of that outside lane when that white flag eventually falls. There's one place you don't want to be. It's that inside line, because that's always going to be the one that's going to falter.
Yeah, Hollingsworth is certainly faltering down there. Is Regan going to go down and join him? Conker's going to follow him. Witt's going to continue to push Gandy. Besaw's going to join them, but there goes Regan down to the bottom with a full head of steam. He's got Conker with him. He's got Hollingsworth with him. Mark Kalin washes up high a little bit, almost gets into the door of Abner Acosta, who's leading the middle. Besaw trying to stick Besaw in the wall. Oh! Byron Johnson turns Besaw into the wall. Caution's not going to come out. Loving and Crumry are going to wreck, but it's going to be on pit road. That's not going to bring out a caution unless they park it on track. We stay green. 4 minutes 20 to go at the line.
That's about 4 laps or so of running. The big wreck as they crashed coming to pit row, but they were able to save it. That was 2 cars that went hard into the inside wall. As you mentioned rightly, though, neither driver bringing out the yellow flag because they were well off of the racetrack, and they are still off the racetrack, so we stay green. Here comes the field down the back straightaway. 4 minutes left to go in the run down to 3. And the caution flag is going to wave. The yellow flag is forced to fly, and that is going to be that for the race. It was a secondary wreck. Charles Woods, the cause of this one, as he takes out Byron McDonald.
Charles Woods and Byron McDonald will take a look at the replay to see what caused that. Like you said, I think it was completely unrelated. McDonald just recovering. It's impossible to tell who was at fault there, and I don't know why the caution came out, because they both kept it rolling in a straight line. Neither of them parked it. They're both still moving in a straight line. Was there something behind them that brought out the caution? I'm not sure, but I don't get why the caution came out there. Not clear, Charlie Woods.
Yeah, it was the angle of which Charlie Woods went around. The way iRacing works, if when you're on the racing surface, if you go over 90 degrees sideways to the racetrack, it's going to force that yellow flag. It was about 92 degrees sideways, so that was just enough. But yeah, not clear is an understatement. That was just clumsy.
Well, bad luck for the rest of the field. We will not get to restart this race under green unless there's a surprise white flag to the end like there was last week at Texas in the trucks. But unofficially, Richard Regan Jr. is going to win for the 47th time in the Precision Racing League, tying Abner Acosta for second all time. We say provisionally because crazier things have happened on the restarts of these races, or at the finishes of these races. But for now, what an up and down day for Richard Regan Jr. He wasn't allowed to qualify. I think he was involved in the middle of multiple of those pileups, and somehow he moved his way to the lead, and somehow he's going to win this race.
So it's either going to end this coming time around to the line, or at least the next time around, excuse me, or it's going to let this caution flag run out, at which point it's just going to let them return to the line under green, but we're not going to be taking a full lap of racing. I believe that's how the system works. Please don't quote me on that one. It would not surprise if I am wrong, because as you mentioned, there have been a few curveballs. There always is when you get a race that ends on time behind a safety car kind of thrown at you like this, but for now, it's looking like this is how things are going to shake up for the moment. It's, as I mentioned, an up and down day for Richard Regan, and what a ride it was for him. And even more so for Josh Conger, worked his way up from 27th on the grid to second. Both those drivers not qualifying, and they're now finishing 1-2.
I think when we cross the line here, we'll take the white flag, and then we'll take the checkered flag still under caution next time by. So I think that's how it's going to work here. So we've got about 2 2/3 of a mile. Multiply that by 2, so 5 1/3, something like that. That's the rest of the distance of this race, and we'll have to fill about 2 more minutes of time here. But Richard Regan Jr., your victor. Josh Conker, incredibly, is going to come home in second. Jeff Hollingsworth, I'm sure, disappointed with third, but he's not going to be disappointed with the fact that I believe he will be the championship leader after tonight. So Jeff Hollingsworth will lead the point standings for 2022 Season 4 in the PRL NASCAR Cup Series. Or will he actually? Now that I look at it, Richard Regan Jr. was only 2 points behind him in the standings. So with the win, with 2 positions ahead of Hollingsworth, but they both led laps. I don't know how the bonus points are going to shake out, but either way, it's going to be between Regan and Hollingsworth for the lead of this championship. Abner Acosta, 7th in line. Not a great finish by Abner Acosta standards, but by this season's standards, it's going to be a great finish. He has had a terrible run of things so far. Best finish came in race 1, where he was down in 13th, I believe, multiple laps down at Bristol after getting involved in other people's messes. Just going to look for the exact result. Yeah, he was 19th. So Abner Acosta has a best finish this season of 19th. Now he has a best finish of 7th, but hopefully the defending champion can get back in form here. We are going to cross the line here. Will this be the checkered flag? Will this be the white flag? We will have to wait and see for Barney the flagman here. It will be the checkered flag we are hearing. So this race will end under caution, unfortunately, but it will end with the checkered flag. And Richard Regan Jr. ties Abner Acosta all-time in the Precision Racing League on 47 wins. Second all-time. Now he looks about 60 wins forward to Bradley Holly on 115 wins. But the journey is here.
But you were correct. They did take the white flag that last time.
They did take the white flag?
They did take the white flag. It's like you said, they throw curveballs at us, and a curveball this was. Now we're on the last lap of this race, but he's still the winner. There's no disputing that. We still called it right.
Yeah, I hope that if somebody have one of those sample pads at home, just take exactly what I said there and play it in about 2 minutes time. So let's do that.
We'll just clip that and just replay, and no one will be any the wiser.
Yep. And then I should commentate over that. We'll get like a double layer thing. We can do like binaural audio of the call to finish. Maybe we've got some good possibilities here. But anyway, this gives us time to shout out some of the other good finishes. Mark Kalin talked about his bad luck this season. He had some bad luck tonight as well, but he's still going to finish in 4th for the second week in a row, actually. So it's been a great Cup Series season so far for Mark Kalin, a good finish for Ross Cato. Richard Smith, who went a lap down early, will finish in 8th place after getting that lap back, surviving to the end. That's a great result for him. Eric Hogg, who always avoided the accidents, he's going to finish in 9th. And Josh Daniels, who kind of disappeared from existence after starting on the front row of the grid, he's going to end the race with a top 10. But nobody is going to be happier tonight than Richard Regan Jr., probably finishing 1 lap later than he might have expected as well. Will the iRacing sedan pace car pull off here? I think it will. So Richard Regan will get to run to the line unfettered, I believe. But we'll have to wait and see. There it goes. We'll let Richard Regan Jr. get his victory photo at least. That's what we like to see. Everybody's going to stay single file, and they will all be following Richard Regan Jr. for the 47th time in the Precision Racing League. As I said on the previous lap, 32 wins in Cup, 14 wins in trucks, 1 win in the MX-5s. That all adds up to 47 and second all-time. He's a driver you can never count out on any kind of track, and Richard Regan Jr. will be victorious at Talladega. The checkered flag is finally out legitimately. Richard Regan Jr. wins at Talladega.
Finally takes the win officially, as now the rest of the field will come across the start-finish line. Unfortunately, a lackluster way to end what was otherwise an absolutely phenomenal race, and hopefully the next time we make our run around to Talladega, it will be this time a green flag finish.
Let's take a look at the finishing results. I kind of ran you through the top 10, but Jeff Hollingsworth did not win this race. Ignore that. Or did he? Richard Regan Jr. has been given a 38-second penalty at the line. That's not going to stand. I can guarantee you that's not going to stand. This exact same thing happened at Texas last week, unfortunately, where Josh Conker was credited with jumping the restart. So those 2 positions will be reinstated. Richard Regan Jr. will win this race. Do not worry about the results on your screen. Josh Conker will be 2nd, Hollingsworth 3rd, Kalin 4th, Harvey, Cato, Acosta, Richard Smith, Eric Hogg, and Josh Daniels were the top 10. Then Chris Hudson and Skip Gandy were actually 11th and 12th. Just add 2 to every position here. Mike Witt, unlucky 13th. Eric Papineau, Charles Sumner, Adam Zemke, and James O'Brien rounded out the top 17. Sean Powell, Charles Woods, and Byron McDonald were the top 20. Then Robert Besaw Jr., bad luck on the final laps. Paul Crumry was 22nd behind him. 21st was not Richard Regan Jr. Josh Conker was also not 22nd. Joao Guerra was 21st now. I think we have to advance forward. Well, actually, no, they're correct. Now that we have Regan and Conker in line, yeah, it's all right now. This is the used car lot. These are all the drivers who ended with damage. Guerra, Walden, Loving, Collier, Christian, Johnson, Walter, and Dinkle rounded out the top 30, and then a few other drivers ran into even more trouble. Dewar, Medina, Amasi, Hoggard, and Scott Griffin all ended multiple laps down. A confusing end to this race. We're going to wait for Richard Regan Jr. to come to hang out with us. The results will be reinstated as far as I know, and Richard Regan Jr. will not only be the championship leader, but he will be the victor of tonight's race legitimately, and also he will advance to the round of 12 in the playoffs. I cannot calculate for you who will be eliminated from the playoffs, unfortunately, but I'm sure we'll have that calculated in a matter of time. But while we wait for Richard Regan Jr., let's actually talk to our second place finisher first. For the second week in a row, Josh Conker, you're gonna have to be reinstated in a result after the race ended under caution. What the heck happened?
Yeah, honestly, I don't know. Richard and I pushed the throttle and then it both gave us black flags. So I'm not too sure what's going on there. Probably just another iRacing glitch. I had one mid-race where it just told me to pass like the entire inside line, and I just stopped on the outside and said to Charles, like, hey, like, the thing's glitched. I'm just gonna stay on the outside line. So yeah, I don't know. Just a few sim issues tonight.
Well, it was a crazy race tonight at Talladega, as I'm sure you expected. But you met with your teammates early on in the race. All 4 of the private label team hype drivers, all 5 of the private label team hype drivers, all found each other on that top line. What was that like working with your teammates early on? And was that planned? Were you all trying to find each other?
Yeah, that was actually the plan. I did a couple A-fixed races this week with Trent and Abner, and we found that the top line was like really quick. That's where you wanted to be. So we figured if we could get all 5 cars lined up on the top, we'd be set. Just unfortunate that while we were all up there, we kind of got wrecked, and then, you know, everything kind of snowballed after that. But yeah, I mean, it was nice to have the 5 the teammates in a row. It doesn't happen very often. So, you know, when you can get it there, it's a good photo op, especially for all the sponsors.
Next week is the Roval. I'm sure you're looking forward to it. You won at Sonoma last season. Abner's going to be in the field. Trent's going to be in the field. It's going to be a tough day, but how are you feeling about the Roval?
Yeah, so I'm not going to be here, actually. I'm with Taylor. Yeah, I'm with Taylor in Cincinnati. So, yeah, it's unfortunate. We always have super good road speed. It's just something I enjoy doing. It's what I do in my daily life. So, yeah, bummed to miss it. I'm sure Abner and Trent are going to, you know, represent the team very well. You know, the guys under the private label team, they're just, we're just all good. Everybody works really well together. All the information gets shared. So everybody's always, you know, doing their best in the races that they can. So, you know, big thank you to those guys. Big thank you to Tommy tonight for coming to spot us. Without his help, we wouldn't have been able to make it through all those wrecks. So thanks to the team, thanks to Tommy, and then thanks to the sponsors, private label and Ethic as well.
All right, well, we wish you good luck in Cincinnati next week. Say hi to Taylor for us, and we'll see you back when we see you back.
Yes, we'll do. Thank you, Joey. Josh
Conker, P2 tonight. Now we get to talk to our official winner, Richard Regan Jr. The result will be reinstated, I'm sure, but a bizarre finish under caution and an up and down day. You weren't allowed to qualify, and somehow you won this thing.
Yeah, I didn't expect the package to be the way it was. Honestly, I didn't expect the top to be as dominant. I didn't get to practice this week. Been getting stuff ready for real life this coming weekend, but yeah, it was crazy. I pretty much did what I did in the truck race on Wednesday, where if someone like on the top lane was like left like 2 car lengths for the middle, I'd just shoot the gap and just slowly work my way up. Got shuffled out from the lead. Then it was like, you know, crazy from there on. So yeah, it was just crazy. Fortunate to be able to get my way back up, and definitely huge thank you to Josh Conker for the huge push on that last restart.
What's that dynamic like? Josh talked to us about how his plan was to work with his 4 or however many infinite amount of private label team hype teammates he has. You had to work with somebody who wasn't your teammate because Sean Powell was a few cars behind. What's that like, trying to find a buddy who isn't your teammate to try and win this thing?
Yeah, well, me and Josh aren't teammates, but, we've known each other for a while. We used to be teammates. The rest of his teammates got into some events, and so they were in the back at the end there. So I pretty much knew that, like, he would help me out. He sent me a message saying he would, and I'm sure if the roles were reversed, I'd do the same thing. Me and him usually are pretty super fast together. I play at tracks when we hook up, so nothing new really there. We've done it plenty of times.
And of course, the big stat, I mentioned it about 3 times as we tried to figure out when the checkered flag was going to come out on the broadcast, but you have tied Abner Acosta now for second place in the most PRL wins ever across all PRL series with 47. So are you looking forward at Brad Holly on 115? Are you going to try and chase him down now?
Oh, 100%. I know it was a season before you guys, but me and Brad got some beef going on. So we were racing for the championship. Racing incident took me out. Definitely got some bad blood coming for him. Definitely going to try to take that overall victory lead right there. 68 wins to go. So the Richard Regan journey begins now. We wish you good luck at the Roval next week, and congrats again on the win tonight. Yeah, thank you. Got to give a shout out to Sean for all the help today. Tyler missed it. He got stuck in some traffic on his way home from Dega. Liquid Molly, Garrett Coffee, Jay-Z Photography, Spotter Respoke, awesome all night long, and everyone at PRL and you guys for broadcasting.
Always a pleasure. Always a pleasure. Richard Regan Jr. tied for second all time with Abner Acosta now. Now we get to talk to our third place finisher, Jeff Hollingsworth. He's with Nolan.
Sure is, and Jeff, it was quite the run for you. 14th place to first, and you end up, unfortunately, having to end this race under the yellow flag. But had that gone green, you reckon you might have been able to make the run there for the lead count?
I might have, but I mean, I was fine just not getting wrecked and staying where I was, to be honest. I mean, I would have tried for it, of course, but yeah, I might have, but all of my teammates had damage or were wrecked, so it was just me against them guys.
You mentioned, of course, your teammates having the damage, unfortunately. Talladega is known for being such a team track. What were some of the strategies that you and your team were trying to utilize throughout the course of the night that helped you to get that third place finish?
Just working together as best we could. I mean, we got separated and whatnot, but my strategy, honestly, was to stay on the bottom, because when all the crud happens, it's a self-cleaner, and I got through 2 really big ones just by being on the bottom and being able to dodge it. So that was my strategy, be there at the end and bottom feed.
And obviously, next week, it's going to be the Charlotte Roval and the first race in the round of 12. Obviously, Charlotte Roval, one of the tighter road courses that we go to on the calendar. What's the plan going to be as we get set to go racing in right turn land once more?
Road courses aren't my forte, so I'll just give it a heck, try to be there at the end. That's the biggest thing with a road course for me, is just try to keep it aimed the right way and finish the race.
Nailed it on the head. Just got to be there in the end. Well, thank you for taking the time to join us up here tonight then. Jeff, we'll let you go. Anybody you'd like to shout out for your number 97?
Yeah, thanks first off to PRL for letting me on here. I'm having a great time. I've been racing. This is my first season in Cup, my second season in the trucks, and obviously Richard on his win. Good win, buddy. My teammates that were there was PK, James, Charlie, and Freddie was up on the box for us. Purple Heart Homes, and of course the U.S. Coast Guard, and Henry Rifles. And thanks to my family and friends. God bless America, and thank you guys.
Thank you for taking the time to join us tonight here, Jeff. Congratulations on the third place finish. Best of luck next week in North Carolina.
Thank you, my friend. Y'all have a good week. God bless.
We will have a good week indeed. I'm looking forward to the Roval, but before we can look forward to the Roval, we got one more driver to talk to. Mark Kalin, you snuck it in again. 2 good Cup finishes in a row.
Yeah, I'll take it 100%.
So how did you survive? Simple question. How'd you do it? Talk us through it.
100% luck, because I got caught up in the first wreck. Had about a minute and a half worth of damage I had to get fixed, and somehow my pit crew got me back out there with enough shape to be competitive still. and then got caught up in another one where I got ARCA braked. And again, hats off to the pit crew, man. They got me back out there and made me competitive. So yeah, just really lucky that it wasn't worse, and was able to continue to fight for a top 5 tonight. So yeah, really happy with how it played out.
So is tomorrow night in the MX-5s finally going to be the night where you don't get taken out in somebody else's accident? Is it finally going to be the night?
I hope so. But the way it's gone so far, I'm not going to hold my breath.
Well, you've certainly spread your field very wide here. It's 4 nights a week now. I think it's tonight. It's the MX-5s, also Tuesday, also Wednesday. When are you going to race the F3? When are you gonna do all 5 nights?
I don't know. I'm starting to think that maybe 4 nights a week is a little too much, so I might scale it back down next season.
You gotta do 5 nights a week like me. Well, congrats on bringing it home tonight, and we'll see you tomorrow night. We seem to see you every night.
Yes, sir. I appreciate it, and hope you guys up in the booth enjoyed the race.
We certainly did, as we always do. So I will drag Mark Kalen away for a brief period, and I'm sure we'll be talking to him again in 24 hours' time. He's going to be strong in the MX-5s next week, I'm sure. But that's been Talladega for you. That was a crazy race, and it all ends with Richard Regan Jr. getting a historic win to tie himself second all-time. But next week, the round of 12 begins at the Charlotte Roval. We're going road course racing in the PRL NASCAR Cup Series. Not always predictable. Acosta and Dinkel always evenly matched. So who is going to be the driver to come out on top next week? Impossible to predict, but you will get to know if you tune in October 9th, 8:25 p.m. ET as always. And as I mentioned with Mark, there is PRL action 5 nights a week. Tomorrow night on Monday, we will have the GT4s and the MX-5s ready to go. And we will have more NASCAR Cup action next Sunday, and then Monday, and then Tuesday, and then Wednesday, and then Thursday. It's all PRL all the time here on RaceSpot. We thank you for joining us tonight, and until we see you next time, so long.